So 2020 has been a significant year for many reasons. Thankfully for Aston Martin, the reason is a little bit more fun. It's because the DBX is finally here. Today, coincidentally, is the first day of new boss Tobias Mers, and also St Athens is now fully up and running. Employees there building these cars. We're here at Millbrook, which means that we've got both driving roads and also off-road courses to use, which is why the car you see here, wearing summer tyres, and the car you see over here next to Chief Engineer Matt Becker, is running with the all-terrains at a slightly raised ride height. So this is a really exciting time for Aston Martin, right? This has been 5 years in the making, this car.
Yeah, so I started at Aston January the 5th, 2015, and the car was shown at Geneva in March 2015. So pretty much as soon as I arrived at the company, I started on this project, as well as all the other projects we were doing. So I've been on this project for over 5 years now.
And this car represents kind of almost like a culmination of all of Aston Martin's latest developments, things. You've got the engine partnership with AMG. This car's got the twin-turbo Hot V 4-litre V8, correct, which we're familiar with from the Vantage. In this car, it's got 550 horsepower, 516 pound-foot of torque, but it's been tuned to have a unique character for this particular car, hasn't it? You've been doing a lot of work with the exhaust note and things like this.
Yeah, so if you talk about the powertrain system along the length of the car, so you've got 550 PS engine connected to a 9G Tronic Daimler gearbox. Behind that is an active centre differential, which allows us to put up to 100% torque to the rear and up to about 40% to the front. Carbon fibre prop shaft then goes into the rear axle, which has got an E-diff as well. So we have the ability to vary the torque, the length of the car, but also across the rear of the car as well.
That's really exciting, because obviously with the car set up in this mode, you can see that it's going to be more effective doing big lumps and going over dusty paths and things like that. It's developed, I suppose, you're thinking of the Middle Eastern market, maybe sand driving, and Californians who like to take their cars out into the wilderness.
Yeah, so basically we've got triple volume air springs, which accompanies that as the ride height control we can have. So at the moment this is put in Terrain Plus mode. So if you think of GT, which is the mode you'll always on the ignition cycle come back to, it's 0. This in Terrain it goes up 20 millimeters. In Terrain Plus it goes up another 25 millimeters. So that's 45 millimeters of height. And then if you go for the more sportier modes, when you go to Sport, the car lowers 15 millimeters, and then Sport Plus goes down another 15 millimeters. And also one of the convenient features we have on this car is we have access mode. So when you come to a standstill, you press park. If you've enabled the access mode, the car will lower 50 millimeters. So again, it's extra utility and usability that our customers are looking for.
Yeah. So I've been driving this car out on the road, and we drove this car off-road. We'll cut to some B-roll now for some footage of these cars out on the dusty stuff. I can confirm it can go off-road absolutely everywhere that you would ever need it to go off-road. It was up to some steep inclines and on some really aggressive angles. And the traction's really impressive, the way it still feels rear biased if you get a bit of power on, but it just drives up hills. But obviously PistonHeads, our focus really is on the road stuff, which is why we've been out driving this one extensively. You'll join me in the car in just a second while we'll run through a few more details.
Before we do that, let's talk about the interior. It's really rather nice, with soft leathers and carbon fibre that oozes a perfect blend of luxury and sportiness. There are, of course, Mercedes items, like the indicator stalks and infotainment system, but Aston Martin has done a good job of sprinkling its charm across the cabin. It feels wonderfully British, and with a frankly enormous boot and more rear legroom than any of its rivals, it's practical too. If you want to be impressed by cabin technology, you'd be better off looking at Porsche's latest Cayenne or a Range Rover Velar, but for outright loveliness, the DBX's interior is hard to fault.
Right, so now we're out on the road, albeit a simulated road at Millbrook, but it's a pretty good simulation here of what a British B road is like, a little bit bumped, cambered, exactly the sort of stuff British buyers will be experiencing on a lot of their drives in a DBX. So how does it feel? So we have, as we mentioned earlier, 550 horsepower from that twin-turbo V8, but it's quite docile at low speed. It does not feel like the AMG V8, it's not burbly, it's not as butch. Matt said obviously that the team had tuned the exhaust to be a lot smoother to create a much lighter feel, and I think Aston's done a really good job of that. It certainly does not feel Germanic, it really does have a different character, certainly in tone and low rev performance.
This isn't a light car either, at 2.2 tonnes, but the weight distribution is a class-leading 54/46 front to rear, so the DBX is certainly evenly footed.
At a steady pace, yeah, it feels really quite nimble, quite light. At no point do you feel the car pitching or rolling. We're in GT mode, which has been set, as the name suggests, for a comfort as priority, but with some performance strapped into there as well. And the car doesn't roll. We've got active anti-roll systems underneath. Obviously this bespoke bonded aluminium platform is able to take 48-volt architecture. So let's see. We know the car can be comfortable. I've taken it out on the B roads and it is comfortable. It does, it soaks up the bumps. But can it simulate a sports car? We're told that this thing should be like a DB11 or even greater than a DB11 at being a GT. And then somewhat like a Vantage when it comes to being driven quickly. Those are big promises. But you know what? It does just feel naturally sporting. In its most extreme modes, so with that suspension set to Sport Plus, gearbox, driveline 2, E-diff as well, and with the ESP off, you then begin to really discover how they've set the balance of this car.
Using 3-chamber air suspension and all of that anti-roll wizardry, Aston Martin's SUV can corner with some natural body roll in GT mode or just 0.5 degrees of lean in Sport Plus. Obviously something this tall and heavy will be limited by the laws of physics, and that's evidenced when the anti-rollover system occasionally pinches a brake if you're too aggressive with the steering.
But if you get the car rotated before you then get on the throttle, it will come round and you can get those big drift angles that we've seen Matt Becker achieve during testing with those camouflage cars.
That means this car's a tremendous all-rounder, but it does genuinely feel like an Aston Martin.
It's just a very comfortable place to be. It's just a very calm and enjoyable place to spend a lot of time, that you can then open the taps in and attack a few bends in and have loads of grip. We're on the summer tyres in this car, the Pirelli P0. You're probably going to see most of these equipped with the all-season, certainly in countries like the US. In the UK, maybe more people will opt for the summer tyre because it just gives you that extra lateral performance, and the tyre never feels like it's reaching its limit. There's a lot of contact patch in this car. Look at the width of these tyres. So you have a lot of grip to go with that inherent stability and balance. Chief Engineer Matt Becker even said that he expects most people who buy a DBX to simply get in and press the D button and just drive, not think about modes, not think about suspension settings or steering weight or torque vectoring. They're just going to get in and drive these things. And for these people, some of them will have families. They might put skis on the roof, have a roof box on the car, maybe even tow something, maybe tow their boat or whatever other active lifestyle they lead. And for these people, who will probably be driving more at this sort of pace, this car really does make sense. It really does feel quite special, somewhat eventful, but also in no way brash, in no way ostentatious or in your face. It feels like an Aston Martin.
So it's fair to say we're big fans of the Aston Martin DBX. What do you think? Let us know in the comments below, and please like and subscribe to this video so we can keep on bringing you new content like this.